Can you hear me okay in the headphones?
Yeah, but this thing feels like it's so fucking far away.
It is, but remember we did the test and you were talking. We get loud during the show. We just do. So start off top 25, Michigan, Ohio State. Then we'll get into the Badgers. Then we'll go Badgers, Packers, and IL.
Roger.
Alrighty, let's do it. Let's see if I can remember everything I'm supposed to remember.
You won't.
We'll try. Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
It's brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 in Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, our favorite pizza place in Wisconsin, located at 911 North Hastings Way in Eau Claire. They have frozen pizzas and a pizza buffet, which we love. We are going to get started with the AP Top 25.
Yep.
Oregon remains on top. Texas number 2. Penn State number 3. So with the regular season ending, we have Oregon and Penn State playing in the Big Ten championship game, which is the first thing. And we're going to be coming up next week. We're going to be talking playoffs. But right now, the championship games are going to play a factor. We're going to talk next about the Michigan beating Ohio State. And does that Ohio State loss benefit them? They don't have to play Oregon this week. That basically a bye week for Ohio State. They remain in the top 12, so they're going to stay in the playoff hunt. And it sounds like they may get a home playoff game, Ohio State. So by losing to Michigan, it does seem like a lot of things are stacked in their favor.
And let's face it, the fight was entertaining. So, and anytime police get to deploy pepper spray or OC spray, hey, it was.
I laugh at it, but like yesterday, I dropped a video saying I think it's funny, but that's my thing. When I say funny, it's funny at the players. Like I truly feel, and once again, we get into this whole generational gap between us and them because we are 20 some years removed, 25, maybe 20, maybe 30, closer to 30. But when we were tough, we would fight in practice. We would fight before games with the other team. We'd fight during games.
Right. These
fuckers fighting after the game. And I said on the video, one of two things. Either they're players that didn't play in the game that have the energy to fight after a game's over with, or they're guys that got their ass kicked during a game.
Right. And I mean, is that the only frustration or a way for you to get rid of your frustration after having a game where you get your ass kicked?
Or to try and look like everybody's social media, everybody's, I want my name mentioned, I want this and that. Right. Like it's the guys wearing the different color sleeves and the guys wearing the wristbands and it's all about the attention. And I don't know, like, I mean, we played in many games, not many. We played in a handful of games that we lost.
Yep.
You walked off the field exhausted.
Yeah. There's nothing left in the tank.
And you shook the guy's hand after the game.
Right.
You know, whether you were pissed off that you lost because of your performance or you were happy that you won, but you shook hands after a game. Right. It was over when that final whistle blew. Maybe there was a fight on taking a knee for victory or vice versa, whether we were on offense or defense. But when that whistle blew, it was done. These guys, to me, it's like the high school athlete looking in the crowd to get their parents' approval or looking at the coach to see if they're happy or mad. It's trying to get attention. Right. It's not, to me, it's not real. To me, and I said on the video, it's disrespectful to the sport.
Right.
It's almost like watching somebody walk on the football field. Like, I just don't agree with that. You hustle on, you hustle off, you know, you battle in between the whistles. But to me, yeah, it was more of a show than anything.
And I said this saying as when I was a coach of football for my kids' teams, et cetera, all the way through. I said, people far better than you and me have paid a really big sacrifice to play this game, and it's an honor to play this game, and it's an honor to play at this level. Whatever your emotion drives you to do at the end of the game, it's still bullshit because you fought, you lost. Yeah, was there disrespect from Michigan planting the flag on the thing? I understand that because I'd be pissed off if someone freaking put a damn flag on the W. On the same token, they beat us.
Well, think about it with the Axe. I mean, we had the opportunity with the Axe all the years we were there. Right. We lost Axe in this game, and we're going to talk about that. But as you've mentioned before, like this G and this W, they're borrowed. Our numbers that we wore are borrowed. Yep. Like it's a part of our story. It's not who we are. Just like we discuss about life after football. But that time is borrowed time. So you got to show respect for the sport. You got to show respect for who came before you and leave it better than you found it. Right. And just like the Badgers, I mean, I think we were the one fuel rivalry game that did not have a fight afterwards.
Well, hard to have a fight. We got our ass.
Exactly. Yeah. We did.
I mean,
but that's the thing. Like Ohio State starting that fight, it's like you don't want the flag planted on the middle of the field. Do something during the game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You look like a pussy when you do that shit after the game. So,
all right.
That's. I know we jumped ahead a little bit.
I know.
Yeah, back to the top 25. It's championship week. What we're going to do, hopefully next week, we're going to be talking about the championship games. We're also going to try and break down the playoffs because I started digging into them. I talked to one of my concierges, Jason, over in Virginia, and me and him both agreed the playoff bracket, it's a mind fuck trying to understand how it works, how the teams bounce around from bracket to bracket. So we're going to try our best next week to break that down. But looking this week, we had a couple losses in the top 10, or no, I'm sorry, the top 25. Ohio State obviously lost. Miami lost, which was at 14, which I'm thinking is bumping them right out of the playoff contention. And then Clemson lost, which also should keep them out. Ironically, Alabama on the AP is number 11. I think they're number 12 on the playoff, which I don't like that. I feel like they're staying in the top 12, or they're going to be when this podcast airs in the top 12 because of their name. And they're not the Alabama 9-3. They're not the Alabama they used to be. There's no way they're winning a national championship. They're not beating. I don't know. Maybe Boise State's the only team they could beat above them in the playoff bracket. So.
Well, and as I go through this, I mean, there are some teams that are still surprising on this list. I mean, you have Iowa State at 10-2, BYU is 10-2, and then I haven't heard of UNLV in a long time, and they're 10-2, and I haven't followed any of them, or even Missouri, and then Memphis at 10-2, top 25. So.
But here's the thing, too. So a couple things came out that I did just glance at with the playoffs is, one, all these teams switching conferences. They're saying, like, and I'm not even familiar with all the conferences the way they are right now, but like Oregon, if they win the Big Ten conference, essentially they're a Pac-12 team winning the conference because now they're in the Big Ten. Boise State switched conferences, so they're whatever they were before, mid All-American conference, winning whatever. But like Boise State, so they haven't been in the top 10 since 2011. That was one of the stats. From 2011 to today, who the hell do they play? That's what, like, to me, there has to be a respect factor to get. Like, I know they say strength of schedule, but to me, strength of schedule never applies to a Boise State. How are they in the playoff bracket in the top 12? It just doesn't make sense because I feel, let me look down the list here. Well, it's tough. It is tough once you get blown. But I feel like there's, like, I'm trying to think who's not on here in the Big Ten. Like, the number 4 team or 5 team in the Big Ten, I feel like could beat a Boise State in a bowl game. So that's that. Second on our list is the Michigan game, which we already sort of talked about. But the one takeaway from that fight was a $100,000 fine for each team. To me, that's chump change. We're going to get in at the end of the segment NIL money, and that's going to be a whole nother topic because nobody's managing this money. Nobody sees where it comes from. Nobody sees where it goes to. And my consigliere down in Virginia brought that up as well. That there's just no management to this. Where is it? Where is it coming from? It's just all this liquid money that they have. But these schools have hundreds of millions of dollars. So a $100,000 fine. If I knew that's all the school's going to get fined, you might as well fight every game. Because $100,000 is like somebody paying $5.
I agree.
So to me, that's no penalty at all. But yeah, that was a wow game. I mean, you see some of these podcasters, our friend Dave over at Barstool made a big deal about it because obviously he's a big Michigan fan. And tons of videos coming out from him. And yeah, it was surprising. I think Michigan was a 21-point underdog.
Really?
And the score was Michigan 13, Ohio State 10.
And again, going back to the whole sportsman thing, yes, and I completely understand that. And I don't think that we would have been allowed to do that under Coach Alvarez. No. I mean, that is...
We would have been punished a lot more than a fine would have been punished.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was more terrified to do something that stupid.
Yeah.
And then have to deal with the consequences for my actions because I let my emotions get the best of me.
And we did the year after you got injured. We got in a fight before the UNLV game started, the bowl game, the Sun Bowl in 2000. And I actually thought the game might not take place because of Coach Alvarez, because of the punishment that might come down seconds before kickoff. And that's what happened. They had a player coming through our lines, and I won't mention his name, but one of our famous DBs, number deuce, went over to address it, but he addressed it during the game as well and shut him down. But yeah, Coach Alvarez was a different breed and did not think that was going to go far. Now to the bad segment. We lost the Axe. We got an empty trophy case at Wisconsin. The shitty team from the West came in and did what they had to do. They beat us 24-7 at home in Camp Randall, last regular season game of the year, and probably a 90% chance last game of the year for this Wisconsin Badgers 2014.
And that breaks our bowl streak. I mean, was it 22 or 22 seasons? First time in 22 seasons that we will not be in a bowl. Yep. And in a way, I don't want a consolation bowl. Correct. I don't want hey, let's go to the Ford Motor City Bowl, you know, to Detroit, and nothing against Detroit or even Michigan at all. Like
but
I said,
it's the ranking in the bowl.
But I mean, like
it's a shitty bowl.
Yeah, it's a shitty bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer to have the bad taste in my mouth for a year.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something you can build on. If you recall, we lost to Georgia in the Outback Bowl, our second season, and that was the driving factor.
That led to two Rose Bowls.
That led to two Rose Bowls where it was like, this is what happens. You're not working hard enough, and we revamp and go back to work. Grab your hard hat, grab your work pail. We're going back to work, and it started immediately when we got back.
Absolutely,
there was no hesitation. There was no like, hey, let's warm up to it. It was no, because we just got destroyed with conditioning and lifting, and had to absorb that, and rightfully so. Based on our freaking performance, we got our asses kicked. So you don't build off. We don't go through and say, well, we had some good things. There's no silver lining. You freaking lost.
And to add on to everything you're saying, just to dump on the pile, not only did we lose to Minnesota, not only did we miss a bowl game, I didn't realize this to read in this article. We lost our last 5 straight games.
Last 5 games.
Like, we haven't won a game in 6 weeks.
And we have not lost 5 straight games since 1991.
Which is crazy.
Which is insane. And I believe Coach Alvarez came in that there was either he came in 90 or 91, but would explain it, but then obviously turned around the whole program. So, don't know. And I think it said it best when they tried to talk to Coach Fickle at halftime, and his response was, "What do you do?" And he said, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Like,
well, exactly. That blew my mind. And that leads to my next point is I told a couple people at the DC Everest basketball game that we were going to give answers on this show for the Badgers. And my number one answer, I think 5 years ago when we hired Luke Fickle, I think he was an up-and-coming coach that if everything stayed the same, in the next 10 years, he could have a head coaching job at any college, any top 10 college in the country, let alone make Wisconsin a top 10 team. But NIL happened. He went from being a good assistant on Ohio State's team, up and coming. He turned Cincinnati around, but then NIL happened. And my feeling today is, as a head coach, you're either an NIL coach or you're an old school coach. And old school coaches, the way NIL is today, cannot coach football teams successfully today.
I agree.
You just can't do it.
I can't even fathom, like, how do you build a rapport with a player, and how do you have that cohesiveness when you constantly like, oh, I got yelled at today by my coach, I'm going to go to the portal. I what are you doing?
And they already said Wisconsin's expected to lose 50% of the roster now with the transfer portal.
Right.
So not only are you coaching to win games, you have to be a coach that could bring that glue and that adhesiveness to a team to make it like they've played together for 3 years when these guys just met 2 months ago.
Right.
So think about it. Some of these guys are coming out of the portal in May, June, July, starting camp, and boom, you got to have an offense, 11 guys that didn't know each other 3 months ago and now have to play as if they played for the last 3 years.
And the difference is when we played, we were all there. We were there from the beginning. We were there, after our redshirt year, and then we went into our and that first year was hard because we were so freaking young. But then after a while, Bill, after that school of hard knocks, the next 2 years were Rose Bowl years.
Yeah,
there didn't have to be a lot of communication on the front because we all knew what. We all knew what we were going to do. We all knew what each other's strengths and weaknesses were, and there wasn't a whole lot of communication because we understood and we've done it so many times together. You don't have that ability right now.
Exactly.
You don't.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think it comes back to money.
Absolutely.
So,
and we're going to hit that on the end. But yeah, it's money where these players are just making stupid amounts. They're bouncing. There's no rules, no regulations. But we'll hit that in the third segment.
And let's get back to the freaking lack of offense in our lack of big guys up front. Where the hell's the pride, man? Like the foundation was built on running the ball at Wisconsin, and we didn't do it.
We got in the first half of the game, we had 43 yards.
43 yards.
Yep. So
my geriatric ass could get 43 yards, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, holy crap. Like, just out of being pissed off, like, it's hard as former players knowing what we accomplished. And again, I'm not living in the past, but obviously we have some blood, sweat, body parts, and brain cells invested in the foundation of this program. So it means a lot to us. I mean, it means a lot to me. I hate watching the games when we're going backwards. We need to go forwards.
I agree.
Hey, Bill, when you think of Christmas, what do you think of?
You in a Santa suit trying to squeeze your big ass down my chimney?
That is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard.
I don't know. Christmas trees, presents, snowmen, candy canes?
Candy canes. The drink of the month in December is the candy cane mocha. It's a double shot of espresso, white chocolate, peppermint syrup, milk, whipped cream, and crushed candy canes.
Sounds good. Not as good as you in a Santa suit trying to squeeze down my chimney.
Come on down to Cabin Coffee Altoona and get yourself a candy cane mocha. What is wrong with you? So,
well, let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. Had a successful Thanksgiving Day win over the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
Got to eat a little turkey after the game. I think it was Jacobs, the running back, had a famous picture where I thought he had a mozzarella stick, otherwise known in Wisconsin as mozzarella. But it was a carrot in his hand. I'm still not sure the explanation on that, but everybody had turkey legs and he had a
some people load.
I don't know if he was trying to be healthy or
some people load that the turkey's full of vegetables and shit. I guess I don't, but some people do.
I've done it before and not really eaten. Like I put onions in it. I might have the potato, but I'll put onions, potatoes, carrots inside it when I deep fry it. I've never done it when I've roasted. I don't think I've roasted a turkey. I've only deep fried myself personally. Yeah. But in the Packers win, one thing that brought them success on offense was Jacobs didn't have the traditional day he normally has. But at the same time, too, we mentioned last week they're playing 3 games in 12 days. They went with a 3 running back offense, and all 3 of them had a successful day combined. Love had a great game, was 21-27 for 274 yards, 2 touchdown passes, but most importantly, he did not turn the ball over. And I believe it's the only game he hasn't turned the ball over since the bye. So I think that was huge for the offense, huge for him. And the Packers, they're at this point where they're having successful games, and I think just like any sports team, you have to peak at the right time. And they need to keep moving uphill if they want to have success in the playoffs. And they don't want to be that first round getting knocked out.
Yep, agreed. And it's a timing thing. And then at this point in the season, too, you got to be smart with injuries because your body's breaking down now. As a player, your body is sore. You're getting beat up. It's been a long season. When did football camp start? Or OTA started when?
Well, OTAs are back in May and June, and then camp starts you're going full blow in July,
right? So
yeah, it's July that they're starting with the hitting, and we're in December already.
Yeah,
and the playoffs still don't start for almost another month. Not only that, in this 12-day 3-game span, now they're playing Detroit on Thursday night.
Yep.
So their defense was huge against the Dolphins. They held the Dolphins in the first half to just 14 rushing yards. Their defense definitely stood up. We graded them out defensively as an A, but now you got to face Detroit. Now you got to face Dan Campbell as the coach. With all the injuries Detroit's had, I looked at their defensive starters, and I think only 2 of them out of the whole gamut from D-line, linebackers, secondary, only 2 of them remain. Everybody else is injured, but they just keep filling it next guy up. Next guy up, do the job we expected to do. And like I said, I mean, hey, we're in Wisconsin, we're Packer fans, but man, oh man, are we cheering for these Lions. It's just exciting being a football fan, watching these Detroit Lions, being a former player, watching the Lions. And like we've said, every week we've talked about them, we'd be honored to play on a team like that with coaches like that. The way the players are playing, the way they've all bonded, it's just unbelievable, especially knowing how we knew. It's almost like the Packers in the mid-'90s, knowing everything they went through in the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden you get Favre, Reggie White, Leroy Butler, all those guys coming together, and having that success, making it to the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl. That's what you see with these lines. And we said the NFL and the Super Bowl is coming through Detroit. Yep. You have to beat Detroit if you want to succeed in the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl.
And how can you not be a fan of the Lions? I mean, they haven't had any success since Barry Sanders. I mean, I often forgot about them except for the last 2 years. And now, not that I'm a fair weather fan, I'm never going to wear a Lions uniform or jersey or hat. However, the admiration I have as a former player, watching how they've turned that program around, how can you not root for that underdog team? And now they don't give a shit.
Yes.
No matter where, I will meet you there. I will bring snacks to kick your ass. Like,
absolutely.
And that's the mentality. That's that old school football mentality that we were associated with. So it's very easy to get excited about.
Yeah. And make that comparison now to what we talked about in the last segment about college football and all these fights.
Yep.
Detroit Lions, they'll fight your ass during the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to beat your ass during the game, where that's where we argue with these college kids. It's like, it's just too much about me and not about the team, where Detroit, they're like, fuck it. We're playing 4 quarters.
Yep.
You know, we came to play 4 quarters. We're playing all 4 quarters. We're putting up the score. We don't give a shit.
Right.
Stop.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because how many times in the 80s and 90s did they have that,
Absolutely.
run up on them? I mean, so you know what? Good for them.
Absolutely.
Stop it.
Yep.
Love the old school mentality.
Now talking hits and violence, we have Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence getting knocked out. And I believe I heard on ESPN that he had a brain injury. They didn't even use the word concussion. They went straight to brain injury.
Well, see, his arms went up stiff, and they call it fencing, and that's associated with a brain injury. So, I mean, yeah, it looks bad, and I understand it looks bad. But we talked off camera about this. You have that split second to make that decision, and you're running full bore. You know how hard it is to, It's
a lot easier, and we see it in slow motion 20, 30 times.
Yes.
And it's easy to say he could have gone high.
Right.
He could have gone to the left.
Yep.
But like when we say split second, it's like close your eyes, open your eyes, and you have a semi-truck in front of you on the highway going 80 miles an hour.
Yep.
And you're facing each other like a game of chicken. Like that's the split second.
Right.
And my ultimate takeaway was, one, I don't think it was intentional. I'm not saying it wasn't allowed to throw him out of the game.
Right.
But I don't think he intended, I want to hit him in the head to knock him unconscious.
Right.
It wasn't one of those type of hits, but it was definitely a bad hit. And I support 1,000% the Jaguars defending their quarterback. I mean, somebody knocks a player out of the game, you fight.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't want to take it too far, but I don't care what level you're on. Your team is your family. Somebody hurts your family, you fight, you defend them, and rightfully so. And take the fine. And that's the funny thing too is, like in here, I made a note somewhere that fines really haven't gone up at the NFL level, price tag of fines, but salaries have skyrocketed. Right. So in the last roughly 20 years, minimum salary has increased almost 5 times. So about 20 some years ago, it was around 200,000 minimum. I think in 2025, a rookie minimum is going to be about $1 million. So you take it back 25 years ago, if you get a $25,000 fine, that's, I believe, if I'm doing the right math, 1/8 of your contract.
Right.
Where if you're making $1 million, 25 grand is chump change.
Yep.
I'd lay a motherfucker out for 25 grand in defense of a teammate, which is a family member of mine. But yeah, so that was a devastating hit in the Giants game.
And one more point.
Go for it.
After you're freaking tagged, after you get ejected,
get the
walk off the fucking field.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing? Is it
goes,
all about me mentality? Bullshit. Walk off the fucking field. Put your head down. Grab your helmet. You fucked up and get off the field.
You got fans throwing shit at you.
Yeah.
Get the fuck off. Like, it's like this Antonio Brown mentality. Like, take your shirt off, make a spectacle, have everybody talk about you. Like, you're already going to be on the news for 24 hours because of the hit. You don't need the slow walk. Just get off as fast as you can. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the Bears Lions game, which is funny.
Shout out to my brother Pat.
Absolutely, Pat. You had to have loved it. What's his name? Eberflus, whatever the coach said. Finally got fired. It's like how many mistakes do you have to make, and then double down on the mistake and say it wasn't a mistake. We did the right thing.
Right.
How do you end that game with a timeout in your pocket?
Don't know.
Caleb Williams, who I believe, read reports that spent less time in the first half on the field than Shabuzi did during his halftime act. He didn't even, during his press conference, he's like, well, we didn't have a timeout. Oh, wait, yeah, I think we did have a timeout. It's like, nobody knows. Like, you have a guy on the sidelines tapping the coach.
Right.
Hey, you got 2 timeouts. Hey, you got 1 timeout. Hey, you got 1 timeout. You want to call the timeout? You want to get the official? There's either, at the NFL level and college level, either there's an official standing right beside you for you to call a timeout, or the head coach is standing right beside the official. One way or the other, you're next to an official.
Right.
Call a timeout.
Right.
Like, how are we in 2024 and we're mismanaging the last minute when you have a timeout? I mean, I'd almost rather see the Michigan basketball mistake where you don't have a timeout and you try and burn one and get penalized for calling a timeout when you don't have one, or the official tell you you don't have one and the clock ticks down, but you're trying. You have a timeout in your pocket and you're not doing shit.
Just kind of sums up their whole season and the last couple seasons. Like, they just can't seem to find a way to win. And, you know, and it goes back to the players with stupid penalties and for example, the Hail Mary that was I mean, the list goes on and on. Like, at some point in time, you have to freaking fire the head coach, because that's a representation of your team and your players.
But now another thing, too, at the NFL level is, you know, we've seen the Aaron Rodgers, some of these other players that have sat behind quarterbacks and then the success they have. Now look at Caleb Williams, and we're talking about these players being all about me. Caleb Williams refused to do anything at the combines, wanted that notoriety.
Right.
He comes into Bears camp with his fingernails painted. He had nail polish on his fingers. And, like, it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, go play football. But everything from the staff, from the organization saying he's the best. Like, I laugh at this every year. So many teams miss on the first pick of the draft, on the top 10 picks in the draft, where they just assume, especially at the quarterback level, the way the NFL is today and the type of kids you're getting from college are from shotgun, reading plays off a board, or having the wristband where they're calling plays. Then they get to the NFL level and they have to call an actual play. It's like a different language. And these kids aren't picking it up fast enough. And teams just think he's the number 1 pick. He's going to lead us to a Super Bowl. And that's not the case. And year after year, everybody gets me, oh, he's going to be the best ever. I always laugh at that. Like, we saw that with Johnny Manziel. Best ever. He's 5'9", and he was a great college quarterback. Dog shit in the NFL. It's like the list goes on and on and on with these quarterbacks. And I think the pattern is the ones that sit, and I know people are saying, like, oh, it costs too much money to sit. Well, now with the rookie minimum, you can only pay rookies so much money in the NFL. It's not like when I played, I think, I can't remember his name. I could picture him. He played for the Rams. He was the first pick overall. He got, I think it was $52 million in the signing bonus before he even stepped foot on the field. Today, these quarterbacks are signing like $15, $20 million deals. So it's not, they're not getting the same money as they used to get. Sit them behind somebody for 2 years. I don't care if you lose for 2 years. Sit them behind a veteran. Let them learn the system and how it's supposed to be done as a professional.
Yeah, but I'll play the devil's advocate. Peyton Manning. I mean, everyone remembers playoffs, and he set the NFL record for interceptions. And obviously, but then, I mean, he was a field general.
Yep, and he became one of the best ever. But at the same time, too, he's probably one of the smartest quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Yep. And
so, I mean, intelligence, like, now, I'm just going to be completely blunt. Let's compare Peyton Manning's intelligence, football intelligence, to Caleb Williams' football intelligence. I think we're talking black and white, polar opposites.
And not knowing anything about Caleb's work ethic, but it's been very well documented how much time and effort that Peyton Manning put into watching film, hours and hours and hours, and just filling up notebooks. You know,
he's not on social media at night planning out his social media marketing campaign and shit like that, because it wasn't around. He was studying, he was preparing, he was planning. That's what he did. So that's it with the Packers in the NFL.
All right, folks, that wraps it up. Another episode, and we want to thank our sponsors is Cabin Coffee in Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire, located at 911 North Hastings Way.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.